Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle. I'll be your instructor this afternoon. If you can hear me, raise your hand, please. We're going to give it a few minutes to see if anybody else is going to join us. Okay, so for those of you that have joined us, this is going to go over the desktop version of TaxWise. You should have received an email from us last week in regards to the 2018 software is now available. It does have it to where you have your client ID, your registration code. So it does have the website my.joincit.com/support. So when we come over here and we go to the left-hand side where it shows desktop download. Actually, you guys can't even see my screen yet. Let's do this over again. So this is the email that you should have received from us. You can click the my.joincit, or if you already have it bookmarked, that's even better. So when you come in here, left-hand side, it says desktop download. Select 2018. It's going to download it to the bottom left. Once you follow all the prompts to the installation, it's going to want you to reboot the software, or reboot your computer itself. Once you've rebooted it, it's going to create a desktop icon. And my desktop icon, I label it as something different so that way I know, because I have online as well. So I have the 2018 CIT TWD, which is TaxWise Desktop. So if I was to double click it, when you double click it after you first install it, what's going to happen is it's going to want you to set it up, and I'll show you as soon as I can get into my admin. So the first thing that you're going to see when you first open it up is it's going to want you to do the setup assistant. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your EFIN, you're going to put your registration code, you can validate the code. We're going to hit next. If you had the desktop version beforehand, or if you're new to us and you've done the conversion in the 2017, this is where you're going to bring over the information from 2017 into 2018. What you're going to do is you're going to load configuration settings. It's going to go through the prompts. Once it's done, hit next. You can refresh the data as far as your partner verification. Hit next. This is where you're going to put all of your office information, name, address, phone number, if you have a fax number, things like that. We're going to hit next. Oh, and more to come later on as far as your e-signature login. We're going to hit next. You really don't use iFirm. This is where you're going to set up your users. So what you're going to do is it already has a guest user in here. And if you want to set up a certain group, so come over here to security groups, go to new, label the group name, and then you can, I'm going to say test, any of the available actions as far as getting acknowledgments, carry forward prior data that you want your preparers to be able to do. Go ahead and select it and hit add to go to the right hand side. Once you're done with this, come back over to users, go to new, put the username in here and the password for the first time. Actually, you know what? We'll make it simple. Password 1. And then select the assigned group drop down, and whichever one that you want it to do as far as the one that you just created or a super user, then hit OK, and it's going to pull it down in here for the user. Like I've already got my username Michelle in here. Once you're done setting up the users, hit next. This is your preparer information, especially on the main information sheet when you scroll all the way to the bottom and all of your information is there. If it wasn't there, all you would have to do, because in my case, I have my preparer ID listed as 1. So I would hit 1 and hit tab, and it will pull all my information on the main information sheet. It would also pull all my information if I go to the 8879. So once I'm done with all of this, I'm going to hit OK. It's going to tell me my date of birth is invalid. So, yes, I know. And we're going to hit OK. Just hit new to create another one. And just go down the line of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so it's easier to remember. Once you're done setting up the preparer information, hit next. This is where you're going to select your printer, especially when you want to print out an actual return. So hit next. Okay, as far as the general options go, if you have installed this to a network drive and everybody is hitting it off of the network drive, if you have multiple preparers, then you're fine. You can leave the current MEF submission ID to 0. But if you have it installed to multiple computers and you have one computer designated as a transmitter computer, then what you'll have to do is change the MEF submission ID. Like on one computer set it to 0, on another computer set it to 1,000, and so forth and so forth. So it doesn't come back as rejected for duplicate IDs. Okay. If you have a residence date that you know that you're going to always use, then go ahead and select it, because I've got Georgia. I've got my bank product selected. I'm also going to come over here to color setup. There are different colors that you can actually have what looks like the form. It's defaulted to this beige looking thing. Some people like the classic version, and it's a very bright. So you can actually do a custom one to where you can do the background color, the red lines and things like that. So whichever color that you want to go with, and there are some really neat ones like a DOS one, you go ahead and select it, hit OK, and then hit next. This is where you're going to carry forward some of the return information from last year. So I have my C drive listed because I have my 2017 installed to my C drive. I can also say include preparer use forms, and I'm going to hit carry forward. It's going to bring up the guest user, and I'm going to hit, well, the guest user is the only one that actually had the returns in it last year, but if you have multiple users, it'll bring that and you can select them all. So I'm going to hit OK. And then right here, I can select one by one, or I can hit all clients to go ahead and bring over. Once I hit all clients, you're going to see a number of the returns that were in the database from last season, and you'll see it counting down towards that number. Once it's done, go ahead and hit save as workstation default, especially if you have it installed to a network, and then hit save and close. So once you're done, it's going to want you to, let me log out. come in here and log in. There's not a password already set up. So when you hit login, it's going to want you to create a password for the admin. It's also going to want you to create a password. It'll allow you to create a password for any of the rest of them. So once you're logged in, there's a few things that you're going to set up because I've got it defaulted to not auto pop up what package I'm in or return list because I don't want to see that because I can easily change the package or go into it in open return. So we're going to come over here to the tool menu and we're going to go over to the utility setup assistant. And then we're going to go to setup and we're going to go to view, edit, print packets. So this is where you're going to designate what you want to print out and what you don't want to print out. And that goes for the signature pages, the file copy, the taxpayer federal copy, and so forth. You can also mark it as print completed forms. That way, if you do the tax form defaults and you have like 50 different forms in here, then you can select print completed forms and the forms that you didn't use won't print out. So once you're done with it, you hit save. And then we're going to exit this. We're going to set up tax form defaults so that way it actually saves you a little bit of time. So you're going to come over to tools and you're going to go to edit tax form defaults. I'm going to choose the 1040, but you do have the option if you're only using the desktop version for the business returns, then go ahead and select whichever business return that you would like to do defaults for. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to pre-fill out things that I know that I'm going to widely use. Like if I come down here, I have the state of Georgia already there. I have it listed as a bank product. I can check it off as EPS so that way the bank forms pull in. I'm also going to come over here and put in my 5-digit PIN. I'm going to select check here if using the practitioner PIN method and used for the income tax return. I'm also going to say I authorize. And I'm going to come down here and you notice that my prepare information is there. If it wasn't, then all I would have to do is hit 1 and hit tab and it will pull all that information in. So I'm also going to add like a W-2 in here or EIC, things like that. That way the forms that I widely use are there. So when I create a new return, it automatically pulls in whatever I have in here. And if you have multiple preparers in the office, you can create just a template for all of them to use, or what you'll have to do is come in here first and do a template for one user. And once you're done, close it, come back over here to Tools, go back to Utility Setup, go to File, and go to Return Explorer. Choose the drop down for show and scroll to the top to where you see tax form defaults. It's going to be 8I and a bunch of zeros. And the I is for individual. So if I needed to do a partnership, it would be 8P and a bunch of zeros. So under actions, I'm going to say copy files to another location. And I can do it to all users or I can do it to a specific user. And I'm going to hit copy and then it's going to go complete. I can also come in here and go to the packet form list and copy that to another user, the print packets that I set up. So once I've done this and I can close it, I can go back into tax form defaults and edit it for a different user. I would just have to go through the process of moving it over to the other user that I want it for. Once that's done, then what we need to do, or what I should suggest for you to do, is CIT support is automatically put as a tab right here. If you're using the desktop solely and you're using EPS bank products, you might want to also add the EPS tab here so that all you got to do is click on it and go to it. The way that you do that is come over here to Tools and go to Browser, Tabs, go to Add New, put in the description like I have CIT support, and then put in the URL. So that way you have that. And of course, the support site I've got in here just in case I need to come over here for my product updates or my knowledge base to check out errors just in case the office has gone home for the day. So anything that you can think of, you can create a tab and all you've got to go do is go over there and it'll be there right at your fingertips. You don't have to open up Internet Explorer or Google Chrome. Now, with the desktop version, you cannot create a new return in the admin user. You actually have to go into a sub user to be able to open start a new return. So we're going to change the user. And if I start a new return and I enter the social, and if I did my carry forward, it will say carry forward data exists. Would you like to load it? That's when you say yes. Once you go into the return, it's going to pull over information like if they had a W-2 from last year or 1099. Most of the information like the name, the address, even the dependents, if I had any, would pull over things like that. So, like on the incomplete task, you're not really going to worry about the checks not printed or the bank application correction. Well, bank app, yes. So you're going to go over to the EPS website to actually print out the checks themselves. Once you've set it up and with all of the user functions and things like that, just go to the way that it works is if it's installed to the network drive, what you'll do is go to a subcomputer or the other workstations as they call them. And what you can do is you can run the tech setup to put a desktop icon onto their computer. So that way they can hit it without having to literally go through the whole mapping of getting to the drive to get it. So that way all they got to do is you're sharing a database, and with the admin, they'll be able to see all of the returns. Unless, of course, you do the standalone installations. You'll just have to invest in a really good thumb drive so that way you can do your backup of your returns. The way that that works is you're going to come over here to File. And where's my backup? No, I don't want to import. Anyways, we'll get back to that in a second. But if you are using the desktop version for the business returns, and just to reiterate, if you use the online version for the 1040s, and if your internet does go down, make sure that you keep the desktop version up to date because you can still utilize it to do your 1040 returns so that way it doesn't stop your business. What you'll do is once everything is said and done and the internet comes back up, you'll come over here to communications and you'll go to transfer to TaxWise online. When you're in the online version, there is a button to import it. So let's go over here. And if you go to the tax return tab and you go to view more actions, there is a import returns from here. And if you guys are solely using just the desktop version and would like to just use the desktop version for the business returns and use the online version for the 1040 returns, then call us and let us know and we can get you set up with the online version. It's very versatile, especially if you have internet. You can access it anywhere. You're not just tied to your desk. You can go home and work at the end of the day, set up a kiosk in the mall, things like that, so that way you're not, like I said, tied to the office. I've got people who have literally set up shop in a bar or at a title pond or at a car dealership, that they work a partnership out with these people so that way they can have more money coming in as far as income goes. Now, does anybody have any questions as far as the desktop version goes? We're going to go through the menu so that way you have a better idea of the way that the desktop version goes, especially if you're new to us. So under File, you can start on your return as long as you're not an admin user. Open a return by SSN. You do have the capability when you're in a return to close it and, of course, apply for an ITIN in case they want to do that. You can change user, you can change password, you can reset password, you can change the package. Like if I'm in a 1040 and I need to go to 1120, I can go there. Search return query. If you do that, Control Q, or right here, you can type in the social and it'll bring up the information that pulls from the return itself. You can do your print setup here. You can print a return from here. So if I go to print returns, it's going to bring up a list of my returns and I can select which one I want to print. A good thing about your edit menu is if I'm in a return, and I'm going to tell you I'm blind, this doesn't look like this when you first log in. What it looks like is actually in the view menu. Edit tax form default, it's set to 14 and I can't see that little writing right there. So if you want to make it bigger, go to view and go to edit tax form default and set it to 20. So that way you can see it a whole lot better. So edit doesn't really give you anything unless you're, of course, in a return. Forms, when you're in a return, you can come up here to add a form, or you can go to the top of the tab and go to add form, or I think it's Control F10. Your letter really doesn't happen unless you're in a return. Your view, use large icons or not, and I have to use a large icons. Like I said, I'm blind, so I'm going to just say use large icons so that way I can see them. Your reporting capabilities, if you come in here, you can go to your acknowledgments, and if there are any in here, then you can see them. You also have the capability of doing like the report list, and there are quite a few reports in the system that are really good. One of them is like the birthday report. In case you want to send a happy birthday greetings to your customers via email, then this is a good report. Awaiting IRS acknowledgement summary is a good report. Daily list is a good report. If you need to know what the descriptions are, hit your help button. And when it brings it up, it'll tell you the descriptions for each package. So that way you have a better understanding of which report that you would like to actually print out. So you also have the capability of doing mailing labels in case you want to get one of those big envelopes to where you can put the tax return in it and then have mailing label there. Non-returning clients in case you want to go back and see who didn't return to you in 2017 and reach out to them to see if they want to come back, like on a promotional pricing. Hey, I'll give you 10% if you come get your taxes done, things like that. Communication. This is where you transfer to online if you're online. This is also where you send federal state returns. So once you've set the return to e-file, you come in here, you select it, and you hit the send button right here. This is also where you can go to get AxMail and updates. Important thing about the updating is once you initially choose the state and install it, you can come over here and it will update it. Otherwise, when they start deploying other updates, then if you have the support site tabbed right here, then go over here to my account and go to, Prepare Solutions, go to product updates, log in. Of course, tell the system that you're not a robot. I have an identity crisis and I think I'm a robot sometimes. So I'm going to hit login, and of course this has failed. So let's do it this way. So it's automatically defaulted to 2018 because that's the season that we're in. but I'm going to switch it over to 2017 so that you have a better idea. So the comprehensive update is on the left-hand side, and then the federal updates as far as like 1040, 1041, 1065 are on the right-hand side. You're going to select the box that has a down arrow to download the updates. You can also review the release notes if you want, and it'll tell you like the comprehensive update, what they did in the changes. In order to do the state updates, come over here to state updates. And let's switch it back over to 2017. Well, we might be able to do it on 2018. If I go to add a state, and under the individual or business, go to add states to my package. And this is where you're going to select the state that you want to go ahead and add, because I've already got it selected from 2017, Alabama, California, Colorado, so forth. So if I select Connecticut, it's going to say, are you sure you want to add CT to your package? If you hit OK, it pulls it to the left-hand side. So when you go back over to the state updates, and if they are available, they will be here. Once they become available, hit the little box with the down arrow so that way you can go ahead and install it. If you're going to install any kind of updates, make sure that the desktop program is closed before initializing them. That way it doesn't cause any errors in the database. And of course, you're going to come over here to the bank update, and it's going to have EPS right here, and you'll go ahead and download their bank forms. Once everything is updated and you want to make sure to check the version of TaxWise, come over here to Help and go to About. This is going to tell me I'm at 33.00 because they haven't applied any updates. If I come over here to Help and go to View Authorization, it's going to tell me that my version of the 1040 is at 0. It'll also tell me my states, my banks, and my business. That way I know that I keep it up to date. Okay, so this also is like send mail to the SFS support. You really don't want to do that. Just send us a mail to support at joincit.com. That's the way you can reach us. You can click on get program updates or get module updates. It'll do the same thing. Under the tool menu, you have the capability of pulling in a calculator, especially if you're in a return, by hitting the tools and going to calculator, or going and hitting F5. E-signature. This is the way that it was set up last season. Was you can create the e-signature document and it would send it to them so that way they can sign it, and then once it's signed, it gets sent back to you. This is going to be available for the online version as well. They just haven't given us any new material to let you know how to utilize it, but once I get a hold of it, I will make sure to go over that with you so that way you have a better understanding. Because I know you may have been using like DocuSign or just Adobe to get your customers to sign it. At least this comes with the software. You don't have to pay any additional fees. So that works out really great. Now, under the tools, you also have the Make eFiles, Make Extension eFiles. This is, of course, where you do your browser tab to add new ones. Your Utility Setup Assistant is good for your Setup Assistant, your print packets, and to move things from one user to the next. That also includes returns as well. Here we go, Backup. I knew it was somewhere. It's under Tools. So in order to do the backup, go to Tools, go to Backup to Disk. You can do a regular backup, and when you do this regular backup, you can start a new backup or add to a previous one. You can include the e-files or include deleted returns. Hit OK. It's going to want you to choose the user or users, and then hit OK. It's going to want you to choose all the returns. If you select all, and I hit OK, it's going to want to know where I want to do the backup to. So if I say, where's my desktop? I can do it in the UTS 18 folder and create a folder in here and label it as backup. Or if I go over to the desktop, I can label a folder on the desktop as backup as well. So either one. Or if I have a jump drive, I have it plugged in, it will pick it up. And then I can move it over to there and just create a folder in there and label it as backup. And you want to do that on a routine basis. And of course, the things that get backed up is only able to be opened in the TaxWise program, so it's very secure unless they have a TaxWise program. You can also do backups, like as you're in a return, you can print it to a PDF format and create a folder on the desktop or onto an external hard drive, so that way you always have a PDF backup of the return itself. So if you didn't initialize things like your carry forward or your export or import the database from last season, what you will do is go to Tools and go to Export Import for the employer database, or go to Carry Forward and select Prior Year Data, so that way you can select it and bring it over into the current year. Your help menu is really good because you can actually come in here and go to the keyboard shortcuts and print it out. So that way you have it at your disposal right near you, so you know which one, like F1 is help, but Shift F1 gives you the IRS help. Things like that. Or Control E goes to the next one, or like F9, you link to another form. Things like that. You can also come over here to like the user guide or the IRS Pub 17, and of course your view authorizations and your about, because you want to make sure that you keep it up to date, so that way you don't get anything like a rejection, or in certain cases, if you're not at a minimum comprehensive update, they won't let you e-file. Now, your little buttons that are right here, if I'm in a return, I can do previous form or next form. I can go over here, create a new return. I can come over here and go to open a return. I can close the return. I can choose not to see the forms tree. I can print the return. I can print the form that I'm just on. I can also link a depreciation worksheet from here. I can also check the return stage. I can also go to the interview mode, because some people like to initialize the return in the interview mode because it's a whole lot easier for some preparers, and they just like it. Your diagnostics to do your error checking. Your e-signature button will be here when you're in a return. It won't be grayed out. You can search online. You can do the publication and the user guide, of course, from here. Do you guys have any questions as far as the desktop goes? Okay, so when you start a new return, you go into the return. If it tells you carry forward, then go ahead and load it. And it's the same principle. You're going to just enter information as you would with any return, and you're going to scroll down. And if there was anything that was red in the return, like I didn't have something selected, it would have a red line, and that would be required. So what you're doing is getting the red out of the return. So you're basically filling it all out. You're going to come over here to the 1040 page 1, page 2. If you already have your tax form default set up and you've created a new return, most of these forms will already be pulled in and you won't have to worry. If not, then you're on the 1040 and it's going to look different because of all the new schedules that are for the 2018 season. So there's nothing on the actual 1040 page 1. So let's go over here to the 1040 page 2. So I have my first box, which is 1, and it's no longer 7. If I select the little link icon, I can link it over to a W-2. If I don't want to select the little icon, as long as I'm here, I can hit F9 and link it to a W-2 from here. I can also come over here to where it says Add Form, Display Form, and bring in a W-2 from there as well. So you'll notice that on page 2 of the 1040, you have like wages, tax exempt, adjusted gross income. You'll have your standard deduction or itemized. It's going to tell you the refund amount or the amount that you owe. And this is where do you want your balance, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to come over here to Schedule 1. This is where it's going to have my additional income or my adjustments to income. Schedule 2 is going to have alternative minimum tax, excessive advanced premium tax credit. Schedule 3 is going to have like foreign tax credit, credit for child and dependent care, things like that. Schedule 4, self-employment, unreported Social Security. Schedule 5, estimated tax payments, net premium. And you'll notice that there's not any blue check marks on Schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but there is one on Schedule 6. So if I come over here to Schedule 6, foreign address and third party, there's not really anything on there. So I really didn't use most of the schedules on here because I only have a W-2. I just used page 2 of the 1040. So this is the ACA worksheet. I've got it set up to where he didn't receive it, but he got it through his employer. And I've got it marked as had minimum essential coverage. And if I come over here to my W-2, if it's in the database for the employer, if I put the employer ID in here, it will populate the company name and address and so forth. So I'm going to enter all of the information as it applies here. If you guys have been approved for the pre-act loans for January the 2nd, it has to have a W-2 in the return for either the advance loan or the pre-act loan. It's fine if it has a W-2, Schedule C, and a 1099, but it still has to have that W-2 in here. So whatever method the taxpayer gives you as far as their last pay stub, this is where you're going to come over here and enter all of the information as it applies. They're going to want a fully completed return. And once everything is said and done and you come over here to where it says diagnostics and you have no errors, then you'll be able to e-file, well, not e-file the return, you'll be able to submit the return so that way we submit it over to EPS. Usually within, excuse me, within 24 hours, you'll get a notification if the customer was approved. They have a chance of getting either anywhere from $250 all the way up to $6,000. And there's not any type of notification as far as, hey, there's a check out there, go print it. What you'll do is most of the time, from what I'm told from EPS, is in the morning times is usually when it hits. But like I said, it can take a couple hours and they're approved. So periodically check when you first get into the office and then check throughout the day so that way you can tell if there are any check prints for your customers. So once everything's said and done and you've e-filed it, you're going to, submitted it for the bank for the time being. Then, do you have any questions? Oh, before I forget, and I should have showed you this. If I go back into change my user to the admin, because you can't edit tax form defaults anywhere but the admin user. So if I come back over here to tools and I go to edit tax form defaults, there is a great form in here that says prep use. And you'll notice that I asked the first question, how did you hear about us? If I come over here to the answer, I can right click it and I can go to edit history list. And this is a drop down that they can actually go in and select. So like if you put email, newspaper, Facebook, TV, radio, flyer, referral, things like that. So once I hit OK, I create a new return. Let's close it. And I can open it because it's already here. If I come over here and let me add the prep use form. Here's my question. How did you hear about us? If I select on the answer, it's going to give me the drop down to be able to select all the answers that I put in there. That way, when I run a report, I can go ahead and see what was good. Like I may have put something on Facebook and people started sharing it, and that was a great way for me to market my business, and it brought in a lot of customers. So going forward, I'm going to start reaching out to people because everybody has almost everybody has a Facebook, and they're always checking it at any time of the day. So if there's like a promotional pricing, because I tell it on all my webinars, a customer in New York, and he does this every year to where if you refer a certain amount of customers to me and I get paid for it, then I'm going to give you a laptop, especially if you can refer 10 people, which is not that big of a deal because you might have 10 people in your family and you're going to get a free laptop out of it. Great way to advertise. And if you were in any of the EPS webinars, Kate was telling us about the loyalty program. If you don't want to do the laptop, then hey, for every person that you refer to me, I'll give you $20. And you can utilize that loyalty card and hand it over to the customer and load it with $20 after you've finished and were paid for the return. And that's a great tool for you to be able to advertise as well and get people say, hey, I just got $20. Start referring people. Does anybody have any questions? So, if you guys can think of anything, let me know. I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes. And of course, with the registration for the webinar, you already have my email address, which is michelle@joincit.com. You can always reach me out that way, or you can call the office in case you do have any questions. If you have not converted your returns and you need help, just call so that way we can help you with the conversions. If there's anything that you would like me to show you in the desktop version, please let me know so that way I can show you. So I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon, and you should have already received an email from us in regards to the rest of the week training webinars. Please join me for some of the other training webinars. And again, please reach out to us if you have any questions.